Do all these things matter? One is able to read other people's thoughts. They are experimenting with that in Russia. I mean, Andropov can read Mr. Reagan's thought. Or Mr. Reagan can read Mr. Andropov's thought. Then the game is over. And if you can read my thoughts and I can read your thoughts, then life becomes terribly complex and rather tiresome. They have experimented this in Duke University in America. They have proved telepathy exists, that thought can control matter, and so on. This is the old Indian tradition. Perhaps Kay has done some of these things, but is this all important? If you are highly sensitive, you can almost read somebody. No? Of course. If you are sensitive to your boyfriend or your husband or your wife, you know exactly, almost quickly before she tells you something or he tells you something. And you can cultivate that, you follow? And have that peculiar power of reading people's thought. Please, when I'm talking about, when the speaker is talking about this, he's talking of what he knows, what has happened to him. And the speaker considers all that childish. Absolute childishness. You may be able to read other people's thought. You may be able to do all kinds of extreme sensory perception. Extreme sensory perception. ESP. With all the business involved in it. If you are caught in that trap, walk out of it. Completely. It's the most dangerous trap. Because it's only the extension of highly sensitized senses. In doing all this, in living that way daily, you have certain powers, you understand? What in Sanskrit called siddhis, which is you become clairvoyant. Because your body becomes astonishingly sensitive. Your mind becomes very clear. You can read other people's thoughts. You have certain capacities which you have never had before. Telepathy and all the rest of it. Now, we have been through all that. But to be caught in any of that, you can't go further. You understand? There's no move. No, I won't say move. If you're caught in all that rather childish stuff, it is quite childish. If you have a very sensitive body, you understand? You can almost hear what people say, think, all that. And gives you certain powers, certain capacities. But if those become important, then you have lost the whole thing. See, that's why those people who, they say, as you become good, you'll have powers, clairvoyance, etc., etc. Don't touch them. You may have them, but don't go turn your back on them. First of all, why do you give such tremendous importance to what's going to happen to the future and seeing the reality of the future? Why do you give such colossal importance to it? You know, astrologers, the fortune tellers, the palmists, you know, tell you what marvelous things are going to happen to you. Why are you so concerned? Why aren't you concerned? Wait, sir, I'm going to answer your question. Why aren't you concerned with the actual daily living, which contains all the treasures? No, you don't see it. Wait, sir, I haven't answered this question, please. You know, when the mind becomes somewhat sensitive, and because you have been listening here, it's become somewhat sensitive. I don't say completely sensitive, somewhat sensitive. Naturally, it observes more, whether in the future, tomorrow or today, right? It's like going up on an aeroplane and looking down. Two boats coming from the opposite direction on the same river, and they're going to meet at a certain point. And that's the future, right? Right? Mind, being a bit more sensitive, becomes aware of certain things which may happen tomorrow and also which is happening now. And most of us give much more importance to what's going to happen tomorrow and not what is actually happening now. And you will find, if you go into this very, very deeply, nothing happens at all. Any happening is part of the experience of living, of life. Why do you want experience at all? A mind that is sensitive, alive, full of clarity, what is it? What does it need to have experience at all? You'll answer that question yourself.
Sometimes we report that we've had a dream which points to a future event.
That's it.
That's entirely different from what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So we could say that...
So that is, I think that we can understand that fairly simply. You know, the other day, we were walking high up in the hills in India, and there was a river flowing down below. And two boats were coming in the opposite direction.
Mm-hmm.
And you knew where they were going to meet.
Of course. Mm-hmm.
When you go high enough, you see the boats coming together at precise point.